All right, Julie, for more on this, let's bring in former policy director for Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Jim Kessler and former associate OMB director Jessica Anderson. It's the Jim and Jessica show. I love it. No two better people to have on this. So Alexandria Hoff just talking about the speaker can only lose one vote. Let's show that balance of power. It's 215 Democrats, 219 Republicans. What's significant here and where the math gets so difficult is we know previously Thomas Massie, Republican, has said he won't vote for Johnson. Just moments ago, Massie doubled down on that, tweeting out, "I respect and support President Trump, but his endorsement of Mike Johnson is going to work out about as well as his endorsement of Speaker Paul Ryan." So we know it still stands at one. Jessica, are the Republicans in trouble? And is this battle for the gavel going to end up with a new speaker?
Well, I do think it's a battle for the gavel, but you also had Jim Jordan came out moments ago echoing President Trump's endorsement of Mike Johnson and laying his support for the speaker. And I think Republicans are wrestling with how quickly they need to get started. So if this is the first day's actions, then swiftly following having a speaker in control, you can move on to some of these important issues that voters sent Republicans to Congress, to the White House to tackle. What are Donald Trump's priorities that Congress needs to enact? We know that the border is top of mind. Well, they can't get to the border until they have a speaker. And so I think Republicans would be wise to get the chit chat done this week, be ready to go, gavel in Johnson, and remember that he is the most conservative speaker Republicans have had, at least in my lifetime, let alone the last 50 years.
But Jessica, he upset the Republicans that we now see sitting on the fence. Among them, Congresswoman Victoria Spartz of Indiana had this to say. Jim, take a listen.
Speaker Johnson is not able to govern and is not actually willing to commit to do his constitutional duty. We have a Titanic on the crash course with the iceberg, and our country fiscally is going to have a disaster. And this is a fault of Congress.
Do we have a Titanic on a collision course, Jim?
Well, you got a couple of Fruit Loops, in the Republican caucus that are causing a real problem. Look, there are three models to be speaker. You can be Vito Corleone, Michael Corleone, or Fredo Corleone. And
a Godfather reference.
And Johnson's on his way to Fredo Corleone because he's being helped by an outside force, Trump, and he's barely hanging on. And I'm not saying he deserves it. He's a smart guy. He's a good guy. But this is teetering. This is a problem.
So other Republicans, like Representative Mike Lawler, is slamming his fellow Republicans that are opposing Johnson. Listen here.
The fact is that these folks are playing with fire. And if they think they're somehow going to get a more conservative speaker, they're kidding themselves. We can't get anything done unless we have a speaker, including certifying President Trump's election on January 6th. So to waste time over a nonsensical intramural food fight is a joke.
So, Jessica, you were basically saying as much. Now you've got Mike Lawler saying this, but yet we know if you look back to the last time we had this speaker fight, it was 4 days, 15 votes, really derailed things. How do Republicans avoid that?
Well, I think we avoid that by having the conversation today. President Trump laid the framework for this debate with coming out with the first and early endorsement. So he has set the guardrails for it. Now, some on the right are going to actually suggest concessions. So what do they want from Speaker Johnson for their vote? And that is a healthy process, I think, that can take place. It can take place openly, and it can be everything from rules and procedures to the clock for how long you have to read a bill to what we're going to do with the reconciliation package and extending tax cuts. So all of that can be in the mix, but it can be done now. And it can be done in the lead up to when the actual speaker vote takes place. So when you have that gavel opportunity, it's smooth and it's quick. And then the Republican-led Congress by Speaker Johnson can get on to the business of the American people.
And they move on to the Trump agenda, which is very big. And we expect day one movements and executive orders. But yet it's the legislation that they're really going to have to get to, Jim. And I want to broaden it a little bit because as alumni of Chuck Schumer, as he will be the minority leader still in a leadership role, has said he's looking to become the Resistance 2.0, using the judicial appointments to sort of stand in the way of the Trump agenda. How do you see this unfolding?
Well, this is an example of a politician, Chuck Schumer, who knows how to wield power and has the caucus united behind him. So, look, the judicial system, Republicans have appointed a lot of justices, so I don't know how successful that's going to be. But in this game, the leaders really need to have their caucuses behind them as they do battle. And I think that's happening in the Senate for Republicans and Democrats, in the House for Democrats, but not in the House for Republicans. That is a divided House right now. You have a weak speaker, weaker than any I've ever seen at this point. Not Mike Johnson's fault. Bad hand.
We got a fight coming. Do you want to say something?
I think what we've got is the reality that conservatives put Republicans in office in the House, the Senate, and the White House. And this is a huge opportunity to lead and get to the business of the American people, not this mudslinging that we just all hate about Washington.
I don't know. I think the moderates are the ones that are going to decide your majority. The moderate Republicans, look out for them.
We look out for the moderate Republicans. We shall soon find out on Friday. Right. Jim and Jessica, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a happy New Year.
Thank you.
You too.
All right. Julie?